with all due respect, this whole debate over the 14th Amendment is, and forgive my language, frankly pissing me off. The thing is, when Jacob Howard wrote Jacob Howard, I'm sorry, because I kept mixing up his name and saying Howard Jacobs or whatever it was. When he wrote the 14th Amendment, he was very clearly intent on excluding certain people, and the guy who supports him, who came up with the website 14thAmendment.us or whatever it is, and see, Birthright Citizenship, Original Intent, this is what Jacob Howard said. Every person born within the limits of the United States, and let's see, so he talks about that. This is the, wait a minute, okay. This is the Citizens Act of 1924, and it's the same year the Johnson-Reed Act, by the way. The following shall be nationals and citizens of the United States of birth. A person born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. By the way, forget the comma that was in the 14th Amendment between states and. So a person born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. B, a person born in the United States who is a member of an Indian, Eskimo. That one's kind of hard to pronounce. Anyway, so born basically to any of the Native American tribes. And so back to the Jacob Howard, for lack of a better term, Jacob Howard shtick. Every person born within the limits of the United States, even he used a comma on this one, states, comma, and subject to the jurisdiction is by virtue of natural law, a national law citizen of the United States. This will not, of course, include persons born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens who belong to the families of ambassadors or foreign ministers accredited to the government of the United States. Will include every other class of persons. Well, he didn't write that in the 14th Amendment itself. If you read the original language of the 14th Amendment, it says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States, comma, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, comma, are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. By the way, the 1965 Immigration Act made sure that children who were born of illegal immigrants were citizens as well. And of course, the 1952 Act did that as well. Unfortunately, though, if the Jacob Howards and the Donald Trumps and everybody else had their way, the 14th Amendment will be so rolled back that, and this site makes his argument that basically whatever the status of the parent was the status of the child. So, for example, and this is what would have happened if Jacob Howard and Donald Trump and others had their way. If you were to even trace it back to 1865, for example, let's say you had a kid who was born into slavery or a kid who was born of former slaves. So the kid was born in 1865. His parents were born before the Emancipation Proclamation, so they were born into slavery, and their parents were born into slavery, although they died before the Emancipation Proclamation was even written, let alone made official. Well, so the kid's grandparents would always be considered slaves. Then some could argue, well, since grandparents were always considered slaves, the parents could, by that logic, be considered slaves. So, hey, then the kid would be considered slaves. And when you have some of these people who are basically looking for a resurgence in the Confederacy, and when you have some of these people using the slogan of "Make America Great Again," which apparently does have racist undertones if used by certain groups, then you got trouble. Also, Donald Trump is talking about mass deportation. I don't know about you, although given that many Anusim and Benai Anusim are in Mexico right now, and of course has been pointed out by various people, many Jews escaped to Mexico and other Latin American countries during the Holocaust. And then also, of course, if you go back to the Inquisition, if you go back to basically if you go back to 1789 when the surname laws were passed for certain groups, the other times of the surname laws, and just other times where anti-Semitism really, for lack of a better term, ratcheted up. I mean, mass deportation really should ring a bell there, because the Jews who escaped during the Holocaust and the Jews who escaped during other times of anti-Semitism and their descendants, again, that should ring a bell, because if Donald Trump wants mass deportation of illegals and apparent illegals, that's going to include a lot of Anusim and Benign Anusim, and we should be saying, whoa, wait a minute. And so even if the situations may not necessarily be the same, boy, there are a lot of racist parallels. And not only that, there are kids who are born U.S. citizens and don't even know it. What about, for example, some of these, spring break boys who are down in Tijuana and Cancun and thinking they're having a bunch of fun getting these Mexican girls pregnant? The kids who are born of the spring break unions are never told that they're U.S. citizens, and then they come across the border apparently illegally. So basically, a lot of this 14th Amendment, make America great again by having the original intent of the 14th Amendment as well. There's a lot of slippery slope, and a lot of those who don't learn from history are bound to repeat implications. And so before you say, hey, let's make sure that the 14th Amendment doesn't automatically extend the birthright, please remember that those who want to change the 14th Amendment right now, even if they don't mean it, are basically putting themselves in the ranks from, they're putting themselves in the ranks of everybody from Ferdinand of Aragon all the way down to a certain person who I'm not going to mention, who, in the case of Jewish people, of course, picked on us just because of our ethnicity, and in the case of people like Donald Trump, are certainly picking on Hispanics in particular for their ethnicity, and of course are picking on other people among certain Hispanic groups such as the Mexicas. And so there's just really that to consider, and it's not just about, these Mexicans and these, mestizos and other people come across the border. There are people among the Mexicas and the mestizos who, are getting stereotyped in and who should have alarm bells going off, because again, this history shows that, it ain't just the mestizos and indigenous people against whom people like Donald Trump would like to be racist.